Okay, so guys, yesterday we have discussed what is a class, what is the object, and what is a method, what is a constructor, and difference between the constructor and method, right? So do you guys have any doubt from yesterday's session? If you guys have any doubts, please let me know. We will go ahead and clarify them, then we'll start the new topic. Okay, now let's start. What is a static? uh, I started sharing my screen, and are you guys able to hear me, and are you guys able to see my screen? Please respond quickly, then I can understand whether you guys are able to see or not. Okay, fine. Now let's start look at static. What is a static? We have seen the static variable. Where we'll declare the static variables? We'll declare under the class, right? Outside the method, inside the class. The static keyword in the either it can be class level, it can be method level, it can be variable level. We'll see them. The static keyword is used for memory management. It's mainly used for memory management only. Okay, so the static keyword can apply for variable, we can apply for the class, we can apply for a method. Where and all we can apply the class static keyword? We can apply for variables, we can apply for method, and we can apply for class, right? If I apply for the variable, I'll call this a static variables. If I apply for the method, I'll call it a static method. If I apply for the class, I'll say it is a static class. And also there are two more places where we will use the static. We will see one of them first, then we'll see the other one later point of time. It is the block level. It is another block level, and if you start using the block level, we'll call this a static block. Let's try to understand what is a static variable, then we'll try to understand what is a static method and class and the block. Clear, guys? Yep. Let's assume I have a class here, employee class. Let's assume employee demo. It has a instance variables. What are they? If you declare anything under the class, what we call instance variable. String name, int id, string company name. Okay, in this employee there can be different type of employees. I mean different type of employee in the sense there may be so many employees like Ravi, Avira, Rama, or Krishna, Jai. There are so many employees in the company, but company name is same for everyone. The company name is same for everyone. Let's assume that later, after few days or some after some time, they think that they want to change the company name. Okay, they thought that they want to change the company name. When they change the company name, it should impact to everyone, all the employees, right? It has impact to all the employees, right? So when they change the company name, it has to impact all the employees, right? So That is the reason I have taken a company name as a static. When you use a static, it will use a shared memory across all the objects. It will use a shared memory across all the employees in this example. Shared memory. Normally, how it looks, normally when you go ahead and create an object, let's say AMP demo, I'm creating a employee object here, new employee, okay, and I'm going to create one more. I have created two different employees. How it will work? It will work such a way that every employee, as we have seen the memory manage, how the allocation will happen in the previous class. Like this is the stack memory, this is the heap memory, and here the actual objects will get created, and the references will refer from here. It means that each and every object has its own memory. Every object has its own memory. This object has name, this object has ID, it has salary. And the same way, this guy has its name, this guy has its ID, and this guy also has salary. Their own fields, these are their own field. There is no relation between these two objects. They are belongs to employee only, they are belongs to same type, they are belongs to same type of class, but there is no memory sharing between these two guys. These two guys are independent. And if I change the name here, let's assume that after some time I thought change my name, I can change here. There won't be any impact on this guy. I changed due to some hike, because due to some performance I have given some hike, that will not impact on this guy. And this guy has changed his salary, that will not impact on this. So when we don't have the static variables, these are all non-static variables. Just assume that in the object we have a non-static variables, like the name is a non-static, ID is a non-static, and salary also non-static variables. There is no static variable in the this class. So what I'm trying to explain here, each object will maintain their own memory. If I go ahead and change something here, it will not impact on other object. So where you want a specific, a shared location across the all the objects, like there is one memory, which memory can accessed or shared by everyone. Let's assume that this is a company name of the company, and each guy is sharing this. Each guy is sharing this, and initially it was, let's just say, IT, and one guy changed, either Ravi or Veera or someone has a permission to change. They changed the name of this company, they changed to big data. Let's just assume that big data consultant or big data. Okay, then this big data name will impact on all the employees, mean all the objects. If anyone is changed the name, it will impact on everyone. So that is the static. This is the static. It is a common property where can share across the multiple objects. It is a common property or common memory to share across the all the objects. Let's assume that this employee demo has 1,000 objects. If any one of the object changed, it will impact on all the objects. So this is the static variable is not a local to every object. It's kind of a global. And to declare a static variable, you have to use static keyword in front of the variable name. So when you use a static name in front of the variable, we'll call the static variable. The static variable is available across the all the objects. Clear guys about the static variable? Try to concentrate, it's very much important. And if anyone is attending interview, they will ask what is the static? What is the purpose of the static? Okay? Yep. So, and one more thing, when the static variables get initialized, when the static variables get in load into the class, other variables will load into the class after loading the class, after class is ready, object is ready. But our static variable will get a memory, our static variable will get a memory once it load into the memory. We'll see that process how it will happen. Just try to understand the static variables will get a memory before than other variables, and I'll show you that what is the flow, and when you execute and when you compile it, what will happen. Your class will be loaded into the memory, then all your variables will be get memory. But in the static variables case, at the time of loading only your static variable will get the memory. We will see that in detail. So at the time being, you no need to worry. You just try to understand what is a static variable. Clear about this, guys?
Yeah, Ravi, can you repeat again? This memory allocation for static.
Okay. When we compile, what will happen is start loading the class into the JVM memory. Or I can say it's in the primary memory. While it's loading, after loading, other variables will get memory. Other variables get the memory to store the variables or to access them. But the static variables will get the memory allocation at the time of loading only. The class loading only. Class will load into the class loader. That time only
Okay,
will get.
you mean to say before creating the object itself? So that means when allocate the memory for the class, there itself the static variable will get the memory, right?
Correct.
Allocate.
Correct, Ramu.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to wait till we define a object.
No need. No need to wait.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Ravi.
Clear, guys, about the static variable? And one more static memory also allocated in second in a heap memory, and its reference will be created in the stack. Right. Yeah. Right, Bharat. It will also get the memory in the heap memory only. But it will be shared across the multiple objects. Now, and what is the other feature of static variable compared to comparatively other instance variables? Clear about this? I'm just clearing up. Okay. Now, if you want to access, if you want to access non-static variable or non-static methods, you should have object. If you don't have object, you cannot access them. But in case of static, you don't need to create object. You can access a static variable and static method with a class name. You don't need to create an object. That's what. It's the memory is allocating at the time of loading only. You don't need to wait for the object. You don't require the object at all. But in other instance variables, which are non-static variables, we should wait for creating an object. If you ready out the object, then only you can access them. Otherwise, you cannot access. Just see an example. I have a class student, and I have a name of the student, and I have a student number, a roll number, and I have a school or college name or school name. Let's assume the school name is static, and I have written public void main. Public static void main. It's not exact syntax, guys. Just to explain this, I'm writing. It's a main method. Let's assume that it's a main method. It's like a strings. You'll be having a arguments. In the main method, I'm trying to access name and ID. If I say directly, if I say directly here, I just want to print. So we'll say SOP, system.out.println, SOP. If I try to print a name, it will give an error. It will give me an error. And if I try to change the name, still it will give me error. Because to access your name and ID, we should need an object. But if I go ahead and try to print the school name, I don't need object. What I can do here, instead of directly accessing the variable, I can do student dot. What is a student? Student is a class name. Class name dot your variable name. We'll start executing. Okay, let's try to see a small example, then we can understand more about this. Why it was not allowing? Static is a predefined keyboard. It's already existing keyword. I cannot give the name as a my package name. So that is the reason it was telling that it's not a valid identifier. And how to create a class? Right click on your inside, go to your project. Inside the project, right click on your source, or if you have already package, go to the package, right click, class, select a class and give this class name. If you want to change the package name, you can go ahead and change the package name here. And so what type of class it is, we can select them. We'll see this detail in detail later part of that. And you take main method. We need a main method and we need a comments. Just click on finish. your static demo is ready. Actually, it should be a student, but still I have taken as a static demo. Let's assume that I have a st name here, and I have stid. I have a string school name. The static, most of the cases, the static will use for the constants. Static will use for the most of them for the constants. Let's assume that Hadoop school. Now, try to understand here. I'm just trying to print name. If I want, if I just say string name, it will first say that it's not a static variable. It will say that it is not a cannot make. What is the error it is showing? Cannot make a static reference to a non-static field name. When you're trying to access like this, it'll check for the staticness because it is expecting static way. If without object, it means that it is a static way, and it will tell that I cannot access like this. This also telling me the same. But I'm not getting that error for this. But I'm not getting error for this because it is a static variable. Try to save and execute. You got the school name as Hadoop. This is the static way of accessing the variables. You don't need the object. We will call them, the static variables, will call them as class level variable. We'll call them as a class level variables. Let's see now. I'll also try to access these guys. Let's see here. I'll try to access these guys with sd dot object dot object dot. Now it is working fine. Now it is not giving me error. To access instance variables, you should have a object. But to access the static variables, we don't need a object. We can directly access like this, or we can access with the class name dot. Or you can also access with the object also. But it will give a warning saying that it is a static variable, but you can access in the static way. The static field static demo or school name should be accessed in the static way. It can just in a warning. It's just telling me a warning. These are the, if you want to fix them, these are the changes. You can make it static demo. I mean, use the static demo declaring type, or you can remove the static in front of the variable, or one more quick fix is suppress warning. You can use a suppress warning. If you use a suppress warning, it will suppress all the warnings. Okay, clear, guys?
Wait, here one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Rama.
So let's consider other class static demo 2 and use the same static variable.
In other class,
Yes, other class let's consider now the class 2 demo, static demo, right? Now define a other class. Other class name is a static demo 2. So like this. Now here also we have same static variable.
Same
The
variable.
name, yeah, variable name also school name. The same variable.
Okay.
Now here call as a Hadoop 2. The school name as now Hadoop 2. Now how can we access this in a main?
In other class.
Yeah, other class like the main class.
Okay. Let's assume that I have here one more method called public void display name. Okay. If I want access here the previous class name, I mean previous class object. As I said, we don't need to create an object. You directly go ahead.
With the class reference we can call. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Clear, right?
Yeah, yeah. In the main also, like if I wanted to call in the main also, I need to use the class reference, right?
Yes, you can use the class name, or if you don't want,
Okay.
see, that is within the class, you don't need to use a class name. If it is outside other class, you can use a class
That's right.
name.
Okay.
Okay, so if you try
Yeah,
to access other variables, you cannot access here.
that's right. Yeah.
If I say name, the variable not exist. It will say that name cannot be resolved to a variable. It means that the variable is not there here. And okay, let's try with this way. Let's try with this way. This also will telling that it also is telling you name cannot be resolved or it's not a value. It's not a field. What it's telling in the previous class static demo, it is not a static variable to access it. If you want to access it, you try in this way.
Okay. With the object, use it. Okay.
What happened to this? No, it is st name, not name. St name. Other way also you cannot access anyway. Let me try to show you this. It will say that st name also is not a result type variable. You can also access with the class name. You cannot access with the class name. Cannot make a static reference to the non-static field static demo. It is not a static variable.
Mm-hmm.
If you say with object, yes, you can go ahead and access. The non-static variables we have to access through a object only. With the static variables, you can access with a class name. Okay, you no need to have a object. Object for the static variables. Clear, Rama? Any confusion? Any doubts?
I'm good.
Okay. What about other guys? Guys, it is very much important because the static will use in a project will use at least one or two static variables. Not at least one or two. Will use so many static variables in a class in the real time. Okay. Now let's talk about static methods. Have you seen any static method in this class? Yes, there is a method, static method, main method. Why main method is a static method? We look at the public void later point of time. Why the main method is static method? So what we have discussed the previous static variable depends on that context. Can you try to correlate why we need a main method as static? Yeah, I'll try to explain. The main method will be calling by our JVM because it has load along with the class. Exactly. It load along with the class. It load along with the class. Very good point. But to call a method, a variable, the static variable or static method, we don't need an object. We don't need an object. The main method who is getting called is calling by JVM, our runtime environment. It's the entry point. The main method is entry point to our class. This main method is entry point to my class. Someone has to call this method. If I say display name, someone has to call me this method. Until unless I call explicitly, this method will not get execute. But in the main method, we're not calling explicitly. I'm not saying anywhere call main method. I'm not saying anywhere like this. But still the main method is getting called by JVM. How the JVM is getting called? As I said, the static variables or static methods will be available to access without an object. Your JVM will call this method. The JVM is called manifest. They'll be having a manifest.xml file. In that file, they will have a syntax of this public static void main. So when the JVM match with the same syntax, it will start calling that method. But if you want to call any method in the Java, that should have an object. Until unless it is not, it is static method. If you have a static method, you don't need to create an object. You can directly call them. That is the why your JVM is not required object to call a main method. Your JVM directly calling a static method directly without creating any object. It is calling main method. Our execution start from the main method. Then why it is a public? Because it has to be available for all the guys. It has to available. It should be a public. It should not be restricted. So that is the reason we have made it as a public. And what is the void? The main method is not going to return anything because no one is going to handle it. See, if some method is returning, someone has to receive it. The JVM is not going to receive anything. JVM is it doesn't require to receive anything. The JVM just start this execution from here. It is not expecting to take some value and do some calculations. No, the JVM just calling this method to execute or to get into my class and do some business or business logic. That is the reason main method is public and it is a static because we don't need to create an object to call this method, and JVM is nothing is expecting from the main method. That is the reason the void is return type is void. And main, it has been designed, they have designed as a main because this is a main entry point, so that is the reason they have given as a name as a main. And what is this arguments? These arguments, while calling your class, you can give some arguments, you can pass some parameters at the time of runtime. At the time of running your class, you can give some external variables from outside the class. So those can be taken into the array, string array. So that is the reason they have designed this array. If it is a single, if it is not array, you can pass only one variable. It is an array, you can pass any number of variables. Like while running, what we will do, demo. Okay, let me show you that as well. How we will compile the code? Java C static demo.java, right? To run the Java code. See, it's explicitly. If you are not using any tool or any IDE, we have to do like this. If you are using Notepad or if you are typing your code in Notepad or some other text editor and you want to compile them, we'll go follow these steps. We'll go to the terminal or we'll go to the our command window. They will see Java C and static demo.java will give and static demo Java, and we will call Java static demo. And if any parameters you want to pass along with the static demo, here will give Vira, Ravi, Hadoop with the space separated, and these variables will go into this string. The first 0th position Vira will go, first position Ravi will go, the second position Hadoop will go, and you can make use of them like this. You can make use of them like this. Here you can make use of them args of, if you say 0, you will get the value of it. Okay, we will see this is very much important when we are processing MapReduce. It's very much important where we'll use the args, where we'll use this. These are called command line arguments. These are called command line arguments or configuration arguments or runtime arguments. While running a program, we'll give the command, we'll give the arguments. Those arguments will go here. I mean, if I say 0, I'll get the Veera. If I say Ravi, if I say arg of 1, I'll get Ravi. If I say arg of 2, I'll get Hadoop. Okay, we'll see more detail about the string args later point of time. So are you guys clear about the static variable? And I think you guys also very much clear about static method. Let's take one more an example here. I'm taking a method called static method. To call a static method, as I said, I don't require any object. I can call this static method in this class or in this other class. What I can do directly, static demo dot. If you see, when you say dot, it will show you what are the things are available with that class name. Your variable is available and get name is available, and main method also available because it is a static. So go with the get name, and it will call the this get name. I don't need an object, and this can have. Okay, can I access here string name? You cannot access, right? It is not a static variable. If it is a static variable, you can directly access. We have seen that before. Clear, guys? The static methods, you no need to have a object to call them. So this is the syntax to create our static methods. And static class, we don't need to worry about the static class right now. The static classes will go for inner classes. Inside the class, if you have another class like this, we can have an inner class inside the class. We're not going to look at more detail about them. We're just giving an introduction for the inner classes. Class inside the class, if you declare any class inside the class, you can call them as a inner classes. You can give a static here, static here. You cannot give a static to outer class. You cannot give like this. You cannot give static to outer class. Illegal modifier for the class demo 2. Only public, abstract and final are permitted. Okay, you cannot give a static to outer class, because the static keyword we can use only for inner classes. We'll see them in detail later point of time. Okay, clear, guys? Okay, now other part is static block. I was talking about static block. As I said, as soon as the class is loaded into the memory, it will get allocated the memory, right? The static variables will get the memory. Now I have a requirement. As soon as my class is loaded into the memory, some variable has to be assigned. Some variable has to be assigned. Let's assume that. Okay, as soon as my class is loaded, I want to assign the values for these two. This is called static block. This is called static block. Static block. Here you can say school name equal to Hadoop. Say location equal to Bangalore. Okay. Someone may get doubt. Can I assign the same way for the name? Can I get this name same way the name? No, we cannot, because our st name is not a static variable. Cannot make a static reference to the non-static field, because this block is meant for the only static. You cannot access the non-static variables in that. Now you just try to look at, when I compile this, I'm able to access these values. I didn't hard code here, but I have hard coded here. When I want to print them, when I print them, I'm able to see the values. But I'm not getting the values for the name and st. But still, I can get the values for this too. Let's try to run this program, Java application. And your name and ID are null and 0. I'll ask why it is. And before that, your school and your location got allocated for this. Or you can write a sys out here to see that when it's getting executed. If you see the flow of execution, the first has been executed with the block. Then, because here the where print statements are, these print statements are, the name is the first print and ID is the second print, and school name and locations are third print, fourth print, right? The fourth statements ideally. But what is getting executed very first? Our static block is getting executed very first. And also, I'll show you one more thing. Try to log this. Ideally, it has to execute. Let's see whether it will execute or not. Okay. We cannot run from here. I think it is expecting run configuration because it's not finding the main method. We cannot execute from the ID. So if you go our terminal and you go to this location, we'll try that as well. We should have a project called Hadoop Java. It is given me exception saying that no class diff found, definition found here. Actually, there is no main method in this. There is no main method. That is the reason it's not executing. So ideally, as soon as the class is loaded, the static block will execute. I'm trying to look. I think the system out println is not executed. Okay, fine. That is not no. We don't need to worry about that. So the static block will execute as soon as the class is loaded into the memory. Okay, and when you see your console, the previous execution, Which one is executed first? The static block executed first, then your main method executed later point of time. And we can assign the hard-coded values. I mean, we can assign the values at the time of class load. We can use the static block. Clear, guys, about this? Today, the static itself is taken more time.
Ravi, I have a question here.
Go ahead,
So
Rama.
this is a static black.
Mm-hmm.
So is it mandatory to define this a static black within the class, or can we define outside of the class also?
No, if you define outside the class, it will give error, right? Everything
Then
should
if
be
it is the
within the class.
case, yeah, then if it is the case, why should we need to define a static initial? Because anyhow, the static variables are already within the class, right?
Okay.
So why don't we hard code? Why don't we hard code? Because the static block itself is to initialize the static variables, right?
Okay.
So instead of wasting some part of the memory for this part,
Okay. It is not
so
wasting
why don't
memory.
we?
Ideally, it's not wasting any memory here. What we are
Yeah,
trying
that's
to,
right. Uh-huh.
we are writing some more extra code. I can say I'll agree with that. We are writing some more lines of
Yeah.
code.
That means you're increasing the binary size.
Yeah, correct. I do agree with that. But one thing you try to understand, Rama, here. Uh, I have two variables. Fine, we can go ahead and hard code it here. But if
Okay.
I have 20, 30 variables. If I hard code in the class level,
Okay.
it looks ugly. One thing. The second thing,
Okay.
if I want to call any method at the time of class load,
Any method. Okay.
see, I have a get name here. I want to call
Mm-hmm.
this get name method at the time of class load. So I cannot do without block, static block. I see here, I am from the static. This line is get executed. I am from the static block. Then name of the school Hadoop. The method is getting called get name of the school Hadoop. Before executing main
Okay.
method, before executing my main method,
Got it.
I'm able to call some methods.
Okay. That means always static black. Whatever the methods that are defined within the static black, so those will be executed
Yeah,
before the
not
main
yeah,
itself.
yeah, not define. What are the methods we're calling from the static block?
That's right. Yeah. Calling. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
clear, Rama?
Yeah.
So I think everyone is good about the static. It's a very much important, guys. Static class, you just understand that we'll use the static variable in front of the class when it comes to inner classes. So other places we never use the static because it not allow also. In the outer class we cannot give. Outer class means this is the outer class. If you write any class inside, that is inner class. So we cannot write a static in for the outer class. We can write a static keyword, or we can define the static in front of the class, which is if it is in inner class only. So don't worry about the inner classes. We don't require them for the Hadoop as well.
Okay.
Okay. And static variable, static method, static block. Yes, we will be using them. Depends on the requirement. We will go ahead and use them. Clear? Is everyone is clear with this? Then if everyone is clear, and next 10 minutes we'll go ahead and look at uh, object oriented programming language. What are the principles of object oriented?
Fine. So Ravi,
Yeah,
block we always use it to, I mean, to define set of variables in it, or what exactly block means? What exactly is its purpose in the block?
the static block purpose is that before
No,
executing your main
general
method,
block. No,
general block
generally
is a
block means,
block means a set of lines of code or set of statements will keep one place. That is a block. Suppose
yeah,
if you take your method, what is your method?
yeah,
Your method is nothing but a
it,
set of lines of statements.
yeah, yeah,
So
correct.
when I call that method, my purpose is that I want to execute all the set of lines lines one by one after one. That is my
Yeah,
purpose. So when you say block, what we will do, set of statements will keep in one place and will will close with the curly braces. Why? Because whenever I call them, it has to execute one by one.
okay.
Method
Yeah,
also will use
like
the
we
set of
can.
blocks, the set of lines of
Okay,
statement.
okay, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Bharat. You were asking something.
That is with method we we call class, but with block only that set of uh, lines of code. That's it. But we don't use block to call something. That's correct.
No, we won't use. We won't. So this block cannot be called by anyone.
Yeah. Okay.
This block cannot call by anyone. But if it is a static, this is get
Yeah.
called by our, when it's loading only, it is executing. But if it
Correct.
is a
Correct. This
method, if it
whatever.
is, yeah, if it is a method,
Yeah.
someone has to call me. Okay. And I'm giving one exercise to
Okay.
you guys. Tomorrow, before joining to the class, you guys need to understand what is this. There is a like this. You can also write like this. You can also write like this. Okay. I'm just taking an example. I can also write like this. If it is I didn't define the static here because it is not a, it is now it is not a static block, right? It is a normal block. It is not a method. It is not a class. It is just a normal block. Okay. Tomorrow, before you come to the class, you try to understand what is this block. This block called instance installation block. IIB. It is called instance installation block. IIB. Instance installation block. You guys try to understand what is this, and you guys need to tell me tomorrow when it will get called. Okay. You guys try one program. You guys try one program, write one program, and try to see when this block is getting called. Try to see when it is getting called. I'll execute the program here. You just try to understand. Tomorrow tell me when it is getting called. The first one is called a static block, and second it is called our IIB, and third it's called main method. Okay. If you want for to make you very much clear, let me put a separator. Exact, Ramya. You are right. So let's try to run this program. The first part is end of the static block. The second part is end of the IIB, and this is main method. Okay. Yeah, I'm only revealing that. I mean the answer for the question what I have asked. These IIBs are called as of as soon as your constructor is called. When the constructor is called, after the construction is called, your IIB is called will execute. Your instance installation blocks will get execute. You can ask me, sir, Ravi, I don't have any constructor in my class. As I said, if you don't have any constructor, your compiler will keep on constructor. Your compiler will keep on constructor. Do one thing, you try to create a multiple constructors here, multiple parameter constructor. Okay, and try to check try to check how many times your IIB is getting called and how many times your static block is getting called. This is very much important. This at least you guys has to do. Okay, IIB will get called for each and every object, each and every constructor. How many times you call that constructor, those many times the IIB will execute. But static will execute only once in the life of the class. The static block will execute only once in a life of the class, and your IIB will execute how many times you call, how many times you create an object, how many times you call a constructor. Let's assume that. Let's see. I'm calling one more, I'm creating one more object here. Let's say it is SD1. Now see how many times your IIB is getting called. Now see how many times your IIB is getting called. Your IIB get called twice, right? Your IIB get called twice. Like that, if you create how many objects you create, those many times your object installation block will execute. The object installation block is for per object. Your static block is per class. Your static block is per class, your IIB is per object. And when I go IIB instance installation block, it is for a per object, it is for per class. And here what are the memories getting allocated if it is not a static. I'm talking about if it is not a static, those will be maintained the local memory for each object. If it is a static, again it's a common memory for everyone. Clear guys? And also, as I shown before, I can do this here. I can do this here. But I cannot able to do here, right? If you remember, I'm not able to do this here because it's not a static. The same I'm able to do here because this block is not a static block. It is a normal block. Clear guys? This is very much important when you go in the real time. But for MapReduce, it's not that much required. I mean, we're not printing anything. We just assigned here. If you print, you can see the value here as well. And also you can see here the Rama has been initialized. And before execution, it was null. Now it is a Rama. Okay. And now let me ask one question from our yesterday's session. Let me see how many guys can answer this. Why my name is null? Why my ID is 0 here? Why name is null and ID is 0 here? I didn't assign null, I didn't assign 0. From where it came? Someone was telling something I didn't hear. Could you please repeat? Exactly, Jay. Those are the default values. Yesterday we have seen the data types. If you didn't assign any value, what is the default value? It is null for the string. If it is an integer, 0. For the float, 0.0 full f. If it is a long, 00 l. Alright? We have seen those yesterday, right? Clear, guys? Yes. Yes, Chindu. Okay. So it's a 7:30 IST. Let me try to give an introduction to OOPS. Is it fine, guys? I'll just give an introduction to OOPS.
Yes, sir. Yes, Ravi.
Yeah, fine. And about who are on US, if they're getting late, or if you guys respond, yeah, fine. Okay, I'll just give an introduction. I'll just take 10 to 15 minutes max. What is a Java? Java is a programming language which follows object-oriented. Java is a programming language which follows object-oriented programming principles. What are those principles? What are those principles? What are the OOPS principles? There are four main principles of OOPS, or four rules, or we can say four pillars of OOPS. Inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism, encapsulation. These are four pillars of or four principles of OOPS. Okay, why we need OOPS? Okay, when you compare with when you compare the procedure programming language, and object-oriented programming language, everything in object-oriented programming language is an object. Okay, in procedure language, we don't have inheritance. We don't have code reusability in a procedure language. When it goes to OOPS, we have inheritance where you have a code reusability. And in a procedure language, we don't have such kind of thing, abstraction, polymorphism. We don't have the method overloading. You know, in a program in procedure oriented programming language, we don't have an encapsulation kind of thing there. So these features are available in OOPS. Why we really need it? Uh, I'll get back on this, Ravindra. I mean, at this point, I'm not able to get why we really need it. So I think without okay, no, I'll get back to you on tomorrow. Okay, why we really need oops. Fine. So let's go back to okay. So what is the inheritance and what is abstraction? What is a polymorphism? What is encapsulation? We'll see them in the next session, but I'll just give an introduction here. If any language is claiming that, or any language is telling that they are oops programming language, they have to follow these rules. If those guys are not following these principles, or those guys are not implementing these features in that language, we cannot call them as a object oriented programming language. And some people will ask you that is Java is a pure 100% object oriented programming language? You can say it is yes, but some people will argue with that no, in the Java we have a primitive data types like int, float, char, and float, double, long. So if any languages has this kind of primitive data types, we cannot say that is a oops programming language or object oriented programming language. Why? Because the primitive data types are not objects. The primitive data types are not objects. As I said, everything in Java is an object, but primitive data types are not an object. For that, the replacement of the primitive data types, Java has come up with a similar kind of data types in the object form. Those are wrapper classes. Those are called wrapper classes. Wrapper classes. For int, in a primitive data type, we have an integer class. This is a class. For the float, we have a float class. For char, we have a character. For a boolean, we have a boolean. So these are the wrapper classes where you can use instead of int. But if you take int as a primitive data type, it will treat it as a primitive data types like um, it will not create an object. But when you want to go with integers and float, it will create an object. We'll see them in detail a later point of time when we cover the wrapper classes. Guys, these are the topics I'm giving. You guys needs to be uh, do more R&D because we have a very limited time, so we cannot sit for more days for the Java, because for the complete only core Java it will take more than 45 hours. So but here we have a limited 10 hours only, right? So you guys need to put more effort on it. Please try to understand me. If I can go ahead and explain this Java for 45 classes, but our main intention is to get into Hadoop as soon as possible, right?
But Ravi,
Rama.
without understanding the inheritance and polymorphism,
Mm-hmm.
so those are the core concepts, right? Because anyhow, abstract and encapsulation,
Mm-hmm.
so those are not the major one, but inheritance and polymorphism.
Okay.
So definitely, maybe with my a little bit knowledge on Java,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm thinking.
Go ahead,
Because
Rama.
that's only
Without that,
like what I mean to say is we also will focus, but from your end, we may need a little bit more explanation, especially in the inheritance and polymorphism area.
sure, sure. I'll do that. No, no, no. What I'm trying to say here, the small concepts are there. Like what is a wrapper classes? We no need
Okay.
no need to much about them for the with respect to Hadoop. And there are something called. I mean, it's static also. It's just introduction, but even we have taken 1 hour of time for that. We may not require that much. And if you take JDBC, we don't require here. What is the call by value, call by reference? Those things are not required that much, right? So what I'm trying to explain, the whoops concepts, inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism, these I'll teach you in detail because those are required. Those we are using everywhere. Even if you go for the MapReduce, we are using inheritance. We are using, uh, we'll be using abstraction as well. Those things I'll cover. Those things I'll cover in detailedly. But when it comes like a small topics like what is object cloning, what is object serialization, and what is the kind of what is externalization, deserialization, these kind of concepts, you guys better try more R&D on it.
Sure,
Clear?
Ravi. Okay, well, Yeah.
Understand, right? And I'll most of the oops concept like interface, abstraction, what is abstraction, what is interface, what is the inheritance, what type of inheritance are there, and what is encapsulation, these things I'll cover. What is the polymorphism, what is the method of overloading and overriding, because those are we'll be using day-to-day life in Java programming or in Hadoop. Okay, fine. Just jump into the inheritance part. What is inheritance? Why we require inheritance? The inheritance is main purpose of inheritance is code reusability. The main purpose of the inheritance is code reusability. I write a code in one place, I can just extend to the child class, or I can create a subclass for it. I can make use of the parent class code where you can go ahead and access all the properties and behaviors of your parent or your main class in your subclass, or your superclass to subclass, or parent to child, right? So the main idea behind to have inheritance is the code reusability. How we will do that? How we will achieve? Let's assume I have a class pen. I have a name of it. I have a color of it, and I have a method writing. It's a method. It's a behavior. Okay, and I'm going to create a new pen. Say that it is a gel pen. Here, I don't need to create again the name and color, or I don't need to implement the same thing here. I can make use of my parents' properties. How can I do that? By you create a class by extending extends your pen class. If you want to specific to your class, you can go ahead and have a name. You can go ahead and have an ID, or you can go ahead and have a color. If you want a specific to your class, you can go ahead and have it. But if you want to make use of your parents' properties, or your parents' behavior, or your parents' uh, I can say instance variables, you can go ahead and access them here. So I can go ahead and call here way of writing, right? So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to make use of my parents class properties, my parents class behavior. Clear, guys? How we'll use them, how we'll see in the detail in the code. Now tell me, what is the relation between these two guys? The relation between these two guys is easy relation. Gel pen is a pen. Sorry, 1 second. Is a pen. It is an easy relation. It means that your gel pen class is belongs to or child of pen. And what you are trying to make out here, from the parent class, I'm taking his name. I can take his properties. I can take his behaviors, which are accessible. And your parent may have a restriction. He don't want to share with your kid, or he don't want to share with the subclasses. He can make them restricted by using private. We will see them when we are explaining the access modifiers. But time being, you just try to understand. Your parent also can restrict which you don't want to share with childs, or which he don't want to share with the subclasses. He can make them as a private. It can be a private variable, it can be a private method, it can be something else. Private. Okay. The private properties which has belong to parent you cannot access in the child. Others can be accessed. Those we will explain in detailly and when it comes to the access modifiers or access specifiers. Clear about inheritance? Any doubts? And Java supports, okay, let me try to draw a diagram here. So pen, you can have a gel pen, and you can have one more pen here. You can have one more pen here. It is the first one is till here is a single level inheritance. Now it is a multi-level inheritance. Java supports single level, multi-level inheritance, but Java will not support multiple inheritance. Java will not support multiple inheritance. And also Java supports hierarchical inheritance. This is called hierarchical inheritance. But Java will not support this type of inheritance. This is not supported. Why? Because let's assume that this guy has a method called writing, and this guy also has a method called writing. His way of implementation is different, and his way of implementation is different in a parent level. When it comes to the subclass, and he implemented two pens, pen 1 and pen 2, and when he's trying to implement, when he's trying to access dot writing, which implementation has to come here? Whether I need to take implementation of the pen 1, or whether I need to take up implementation of the pen 2. It is an ambiguity, it is a confusion. So that is the reason Java will not support multiple. Java will not support multiple inheritance. Clear, guys? Java will support single level or single inheritance, and it will support multi-level, and it will support hierarchical, you can say hierarchical inheritance. And Java will not support, as I said, multiple inheritance, and there is one more type of inheritance called hybrid inheritance. Hybrid inheritance is nothing but the combination of multiple and hierarchy. This is hybrid. These are all five type will support in C++, but it will not support in Java because of the ambiguity. There we have a friend function kind of thing, and in the C++ where we have a virtual function, friend function is there and virtual function is there. I hope, not sure exactly. I forgot it was. I didn't really implement them. I think virtual function is there because with the help of the virtual function we can remove this ambiguity. That is the reason C++ is supporting the multiple and hybrid uh, inheritance, but Java we don't have that kind of virtual function or friend function in Java. That is the reason we're not able to. Java is avoided these two type of inheritances. Clear, guys? If anyone is from C++ background, they can give more input on this. Clear, guys? We'll see in detail tomorrow with the program with an explanation. What is a single level, how we will do, multiple level, how we will do, and what is the purpose of them, how we will use the code and all. We'll see tomorrow. Okay? Thank you guys, and I'm ending the session now. I mean, this is what we have planned for today, and tomorrow we will see the complete detail of inheritance, abstraction, and encapsulation polymorphism. Those details we'll see tomorrow in detail. And so, if anyone has doubts, they can stay back, or others can leave for the day. I think no one has the doubts. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time.